Ladies and gentlemen, chess is hard, and it's especially hard because it's difficult to learn from your mistakes and how to prevent them in the future. And so in this video, I'm going to look at 3 games that my subscribers sent to me around the Elo of 800, 1200, and 1700, which covers a very, very big range and the Elo that most of you probably fall into. And we are going to take a deep dive in this video about how to actually break your games down, how to get tangible, actionable advice away from your games, and how to utilize them in the future. I make a lot of entertaining chess content, but this is going to be purely instructional. And before we jump into these games, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Incogni. Folks, it's 2023. The world is more digital than ever before. Every minute of every day, in fact, every second of every day, millions of website signups and online transactions are happening. And at the epicenter of it all is one very important thing: your personal data. Nowadays, data breaches are more common than ever before, and there are literal data brokers buying and selling people's personal information. The smallest inconvenience of this is you getting one of those annoying telemarketing calls, but there are potentially much bigger issues like identity theft, someone signing up for a credit card in your name. But that's where Incogni steps in. Incogni fights on your behalf to scrub your information from the internet in the places that you do not want it. And it works in just 3 simple steps. First, you sign up for an account on Incogni's website. Then you grant them the right to work on your behalf. And lastly, you just sit back, relax, and watch them go to work. They will take on data brokers and any website where your personal information might be located. Personally, I hope that governments step in and start fighting for the data of their citizens, but until we get to that point, Incogni is a fantastic solution. And my friends, you know how this works. Click the link in the description if you're interested in Incogni, and the first 100 of you to use the code Gotham will get 60% off your Incogni subscription. Now let's get back to the video. So, I asked my subscribers to send in rapid games that they played recently that they lost. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at these games, and then we're going to take away 3 to 5 bullet point summaries of what happened, why we lost, whether we played a good opening, and mistakes that we can avoid in the future in middle games. That's the most important way to get better at chess, is to pull away generalities, general things that you can fix, concrete things you can fix, to work on things that you do well, things that you do poorly. Let's jump into game number 1 between Wizard and Henry. Usernames have been redacted because I do not want to expose anybody. White plays the move knight c3, black plays e5. Already we have something weird. And you're gonna notice, maybe that was a mouse slip, like, we don't know. Maybe, I don't know if white deliberately tried to play this or what, but the way black has played the opening is already much better than the way white has played the opening. For a beginner, early intermediate player, this is excellent stuff. That's why black already enjoys an advantage. White plays bishop b2, black castles, and now, like, rook b1 is weird. But that's, you can't control how your opponents play. You can only work on yourself. White has clearly played in a way that is bad. Why has white played in a way that is bad? White has developed the pieces in a way where the bishop is stuck, and this bishop is blocked, right? The rook hasn't moved yet, and, right, like, just a little bit congested here. And now, instead of playing pawn to d6 and bringing the bishop out, black plays d5. So, the point is, if black has an opportunity to put 2 pawns in the center, they should. Which is exactly what black is doing, right? Because if pawn takes, take, life is good, okay? This pressures this, and black can always put the rook and move the bishop out, and so if you can put 2 pawns in the center, you should do it. Now, of course, can black play d6? Absolutely, but black plays pawn to d5. Okay, pawn to d5. Completely reasonable move. So far, so good, everything going well for black. Now we have knight f3. Black plays d4, natural move, advancing forward. I don't hate that move. Could black have, played here or tried to trade the knight for the bishop and damage white's pawn structure? Sure. I don't hate this move. And actually, white immediately gets into trouble, and black plays b5. So far, all black is doing as a beginner is using 2 pawns, using all 4 of their pieces, and creating threats that are not just simple threats. They are actually improving black's position, securing more control of the center of the board, and position is very reasonable. Now, here white goes for something that just doesn't work, okay? Black attacks the knight, right? Attacks the knight. White counterattacks the bishop, and this move fails for 2 separate reasons. Number 1, white completely stopped calculating at pawn takes knight, pawn takes bishop. But that wouldn't be the end of the sequence, because after that, this would take another piece. So it would go take, take, take. Black just wins 2 pieces. Okay, sure, white has an open file, but there's no checkmate. The queen cannot teleport. Okay? So that is just a fundamental tactical mistake, and the second reason this fails is before you take the knight on c4, you can just take this knight. So you get both of white's horses, and now you are just winning. You are just up a full piece. But the point of this video is to show how we lose games, right? But black is completely winning. Well, black clearly did very well in the first 15 moves of this game. Now it's about winning, right? It's about winning this game. I don't dislike black's next move, which is knight to b4, attacking the pawn on c2 with a check. I mean, it's actually kind of difficult to defend. If white plays rook c1, you will just take this pawn. Then you will come back and pressure that again. So knight b4, and in the game, actually, white played a3, and not just played a3, white lost this pawn, and then white proceeded to lose this pawn as well, which they lost in the very next move. So my friends, this is going to clearly, as you are seeing, be a game where we're really confused how black managed to lose this game. But this is very important stuff. Pawn to c6 is a weird move. And also, black spent 48 seconds on that move. That move doesn't make much sense. You should obviously be trying to take, but if you can't, you should try to use one of your... Pawn to c6 is a very odd move, but okay. Now white plays d3, and now black takes. Now black realizes that's hanging, then takes. Excellent. Black is up 4 points of material, and the way you would win this is you would either simplify all the pieces down or launch a big attack on the king. You can make moves that improve your position, that put pressure on your opponent. You can utilize this pawn. You can just push this pawn as far as possible. What you should not do is blunder a knight in one move. And that is what happened. And that is why we lose games sub 1,000. One move mistakes. A lot of one move chess. A lot of it. In fact, the follow-up here is even worse than the first mistake, because the first mistake, black is still winning. Black is still winning here because black can go here and then infiltrate, and it's going to be very tough for white to protect the whole position. It's just not possible. Not to mention, that's mate. But black blunders and lets the second mistake kill them, and they just play this one mover. So a one mover to lose the knight, and a one mover, very, very, very simple chess, just attacking the queen, not thinking any deeper. Now we lose this pawn, and now we lose this pawn. We just lost a knight and 2 pawns, and we are about to get checkmated. How quickly things turn around. And there's another reason you're going to see that black ends up losing this game. Pawn to f6, king h8, and suddenly black makes a comeback. Black queen takes, pawn check. Look at this. What is going on? This is insane. And now another clutch move by black, bishop c3, getting in the way of the bishop. Very nicely spotted. You can't take anything in bishop f6. If rook e8 is played here, bishop f6 is fatal for black. So excellent move. Rook f1. Now the pawns start falling. And you'll notice here, black starts spending 30 seconds of clock time. 30 seconds, right? Pawn to f5, another 20 seconds. And then realizing that if they play rook takes, they're going to hang this. So here they have to spend another 15 seconds. Now they're down to 230. The position is very balanced. White is a pawn up, but black is doing well because this king is so weak and the rooks are congested, and this is an outside pass pawn. Now, a lot of shuffling, a lot of checks, rook d8, rook f7. And at this point, look at how much time black has left. 1 minute and 7 seconds. And that's very important, because in a perfect world, you're just going to win this pawn. It's impossible for white to escort the pawn up because you're just going to get in against the king. For example, if white plays rook c2 in this position, you can play rook f8, f2, c5 rather, f2, and this game will just simply end in a draw because you will take the pawn. Now, you could take on g3, but then this is still a bit scary. But instead of that, with a minute on the clock, black shuffles, and removes the queen from the defense of the rook and loses the game. So, in total in this game, black lost 8 points of material to one movers. Black lost the knight on h5. You could also argue black lost this, and black lost this. So, black lost 10 points of material to one move captures. 10 points. Okay? Why else did black let white back into the game? Because black needs just a little bit of practice in endgame conversion. But I think actually what takes priority here is just the one mover. The one mover, and all of just 3 one-movers in a row. Did a good job fighting back. And then after that, inefficient use of time. That's actually, time management is a major part of the game. 230 versus 552 is just not it. I mean, you gotta go. I understand. Losing a game because you're playing too quickly now is the same thing as losing a game because you have no time on the clock at the end and you blunder. Even here, 14 seconds to hang the rook. Just inefficient time usage. As you get better at chess and you're going to play 30-minute games, 60-minute games at local tournaments, you have to be able to use your time efficiently, because losing a game because if you play a little bit too quickly versus losing a game where you have absolutely no business losing because you just didn't budget enough time is a major component of the game. So the real reason black lost this game is time management. That's actually like the last mistake that black made. Is black hung a rook because they did not have enough time to stay calm. But they got to this point because of one movers and a sequence of moves that fully allowed the opponent to get back into the game. Stopping yourself after that first mistake, composing yourself and realizing, how do I get my most powerful pieces into the game? Okay? How do I get my most powerful attacking pieces that are not playing into the game? Black did not move these pieces at all. Look how long it took for black to start moving pieces. Black was completely busted. Took black 20 moves to move any of these pieces, utilizing those heavy pieces a little bit more. Now, I have another game for you. This game, utter chaos. Utter chaos. We're going up the ladder to 1150, 1200 level. Black plays a kind of a accelerated Queen's Gambit and gets exactly the kind of position you would want. White doing all of this stuff to hang on to the pawn. It's not recommended to take c pawns like this because they're very easy to win back, giving black quick development. And in this game, white tried to defend this as much as possible, but just ran into huge problems later. Black could have already played knight d4, by the way. And this is kind of how you should understand your openings. Bishop e7 is fine, but you have to understand, you played a gambit, you're down a pawn, so if you have a move to go into the center of the board, target the enemy piece, eyes on this, eyes on that, eyes on, various, for instance, knight b3 wins because of this, right? So I don't mind bishop e7, but, you got to step on the gas a little bit. It doesn't really matter because black just gets a crushing position in 12 moves. Clearly, black has a higher understanding of this opening than their opponent. Knight takes, queen takes, and now I wouldn't even prioritize taking this anymore. I would prevent my opponent from castling, but I don't mind this at all. Clearly, the opening is a success. The bishop goes to a6, laser beaming, and now, do you trade the queens? 1200 says no. One of the best moves. Trading queens here alleviates so much pressure. Look at the eval. Back to -1. Here it's -3. It's -3. That's how good black's position is, because the queen is an attacking piece. Not trading the queen is very good. So far, I have no complaints. The opening has been great. You completely are preventing the opponent from castling. What we should do next is not simplify. We're not simplifying. That's how you win a winning position when you're up material. You're not up material here. Go forward. Attack with your rooks, attack with your knight, blow open the center of the board. The king cannot get in contact with his rooks. That's really, really bad. So, knight takes e5 is a terrible, terrible move because it opens the floodgates to the rook. Rook e8 here is automatic. Automatic move. You just, now knight d3, I can take, the pin is alive, rook takes e4 check. The king's got to move, rook d4, boom, there's my win. Queen f3 here is a counterattack, but I can play like rook e8. White is just out of sorts. White is just playing down a full rook. Knight takes e5 is unclogging the artery of the e-file. I mean, it's only a benefit to black. And you know what else black has here? Just a fork, purely winning the game. Pure fork. It's right there. Black did everything right. Pawn to d6. Too slow. Too slow. You have multiple options here, and you choose to attack the knight with a pawn, allowing the knight to get back. Very, very not okay. And the next move is even more heartbreaking. Taking the knight. in 4 seconds. No. Your bishop is the best piece you have. You need to play moves here that bother white, that don't let white castle. You have to ask yourself, I'm better, but what does white want? White would love to castle. Love. There's literally nothing else. Well, white wants a free queen. Shut up. White wants to castle. White wants to castle. That's what white wants. You can't trade your piece there. I don't care if it's attacking your queen, because what is white's next move? It's this. Now, if I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how do I prevent white from castling here? I'm thinking rook a3. I'm still thinking of ways to attack, but it's too late. By the time you get all of this, white's going to castle. And then it doesn't matter that you won the pawn back because white's king is safe and white's rooks are coming and it's game on. That is the most important thing here. Black got a wonderful position, but misunderstood the concept of time, misunderstood the value of certain individual pieces, the relative value of individual pieces at this moment in time. Pawn to d6 is not it. It's not it. You've got to activate these pieces, just like the last game. The person just did not activate their queens or their rooks. And then this to me is the big mistake. And now this is a gross mishandling of the rook. The rook needs to not stare into its own army like this. The rook needs to stare, if it stares at anybody, it has to stare at the enemy army. Or like that. Rook d8 is imprisoning this rook, and now this rook can only go there. And by the time that rook goes there, it's going to be too late. And black tries to play d5, but this is hope chess. Black is just hoping for pawn takes rook d5, which is winning for black. That's not wrong. But if white just goes e5, that's it. Now white is better. We just went from a position where, it was miserable. Like, white was never going to castle, and white opened up the files for your rooks. Game was over. So black failed to capitalize in around a 3 to 4 move sequence by incorrectly making an exchange and not utilizing their pieces to the maximum ability. Just taking a moment and going, wait a minute, this is massive for me because I'm basically rendering 2 pieces completely out of commission. And by the time we fast forward a couple of moves, you've traded your bishop, white's king is safe, and white is a pawn up. White is just purely up a pawn. It's a really bad pawn too because it's an outside pass pawn. Now, that's not the end of the game. Despite all of that, and despite, like f6, like black is just, black is in a bad spot here. But despite all of that, black keeps fighting. Kicks out the knight. Activates their knight. White goes here. Queen f5. It's still a game. And white blunders a fork. So black is actually winning again. Black is just winning. Purely winning. Why is black winning now? We have to adapt to the situation. Rook is better than a knight and a pass pawn. Just pass pawn. You just play d4. Computer's going to show some knight c6 stuff here, but d4, d3, and that's it. It's a completely winning position. You just need to activate these rooks, push this far enough, and escort the pawns. And trade into an endgame. That's incredible stuff. Excellently spotted. Okay. d4. Rook d4. Okay. We stop that pawn. Now g4. Now we slide in a little bit closer. The game is over. The game's got to be over. The king is safe. Our pawn is 2 squares away from queening. White is doing everything wrong. The king is weak. This is weak. White plays a6. We play d2. We're a square away from queening. The game is absolutely over. -3 and up 3 minutes on the clock. g5. You just take it. You could just take it. If take, they lose the knight. There's nothing there. You can maybe give a check first if you want. Instead, this. Queens anyway. Pawn to g6 is actually a little bit scary. But actually, queen takes g6 is still winning because you still have a queen. You still have a queen. So if knight takes, you don't do this and lose your queen. You give a check, and that's it. So, of course, you should minimize your opponent's counterplay. When you are up this much on the clock, you have to minimize the counterplay. Instead of that, black blunders, checkmate. Black blunders, smothered mate. Knight takes h6, queen g8, and just unbelievable with a pawn. But that doesn't happen. Instead, this, and now the queen can block the check. And instead of that, black goes here and hangs mate in 1. Oh, there is a lot more to unpack here. Okay, there is a lot more to unpack. Number 1, why did black lose this game? Panic. Black lost this game in the complete opposite way that the sub lost the game last time. Black had the 3-minute time advantage. Panic, that's what this was. Panic, just playing against these 44 seconds. A lot of you do that. Don't play. You got 4 minutes on the clock. Your ass better not lose this game by checkmate in 1. Discovered check, block the check. All right, this happens. Games like this are what? That is why Black lost this game. One reason, and one reason only, is because of that. Now, we have to work backwards. Why else did Black lose this game? Complete disregard for opponent's counterplay, right? Pawn to g6 check, protect your king. Material and king safety. Always protect your king. Always look at, like, the first thing I see here is g6 check, so I'm just gonna take. Because there's no checks in this position. I don't care how much time I have. If I had the 1 minute, I would have still taken that pawn. That's number 2. Now, number 3, we start moving backwards. That's why Black lost the game in this position. That's how Black lost this game. Panicked because of the time situation. Didn't respect the counterplay on the king. How did Black lose the advantage earlier? Everything that I said. The opening was spectacular. And then here, complete and total misunderstanding. If you're not going to trade the queens in this position because you know you're not supposed to trade the queens, you should know you never trade the knight for the bishop, ever. So that queen trade was good. That's why you're 1150, because of, you know, you didn't trade the queens, but this is also why you're 1150, because of bishop d3. If you don't trade the queens here, and you play rook e8 instead of pawn d6, you'll be 1300, 1400, okay? That is how we make improvements. Incorrect moments of piece trade, not exactly understanding the situation, the time-sensitive situation of the board, allowing the opponent to get away while having a totally winning position, and not using the pieces to the maximum, then fighting back to a winning position, and then purely panicking. That's why Black did not win this game. Now, last game. Very high-level game, all right? 1800, this is a King's Indian defense. Black plays some weird opening. White gets a monster center. Black, I mean, I don't even know what is going on here, all right? White develops, White castles, and White plays e5. Excellent. Look at this. 4 pawns, knights, bishop, e5. Black is worse, much worse. Take. And now a very major moment in this game. We have a big advantage. What's next? Do we keep making improving moves? Do we develop our queen and our bishop? Or do we go for an attack? Yeah, me personally, I like what White did. I like trying to attack. But you do have to think about what does Black want. And actually, Black wants c5. And 1700s might not know this. They have to learn this. This is actually the best move here. It's one of these really absurd moments in the King's Indian where nothing in Black's position can move because Black played in a very silly way. So Black would play b6, and in that time, you would start an attack because nothing can move. By the time Black takes this pawn, knight f7, bishop c4, and Black is completely lost because Black is just unable to move any of this. But that's informational. That is not chess playing, that is information. Okay, that's information. Knight g5 played right away, h6, and now White goes back. Okay, I don't like that. See, these are very subtle things, but what did you expect when you played knight g5? You probably expected c5, I don't know, e6? Was there a reason you went here? I don't believe this whole thing of, well, I wanted the pawn to be weak. I don't know if you have the time for that. But see, it's very subtle because the advantage is still big. So c5. In that time, in the time that you did this, you now gave your opponent second wind. So now your opponent has a bunch of central targets. To start an attack on a person, you want to attack them over here, you got to lock the center. d5. But d5 loses a pawn. No, it doesn't, because of the pawn that you just put for my bishop. You just did that. Take, bishop h6. White is still very happy here. Look at the advantage size. 1.4, that's very big. Queen, rook here. Very nice. I don't really like this move. All of the advantage is gone. Why? Because in the King's Indian, if the opponent manages to shred open the center, you're in trouble. You are not going to attack anybody with an open center because Black's going to have immediate counterplay. So just little fundamental positional understandings. Now, Black plays b6, which is an atrocious move. Now, again, lock the position. Sack the pawn to open up the king. You got to go for it. Again, preparatory move. Queen d2, don't love it, don't hate it, but now pawn takes d4, and Black is developing all of their pieces. Knight c5, and now Black is totally fine. Black is completely fine. They just got out in time, and now a big exchange happens. White decides to relieve a little bit of the pressure. Everything gets traded. Knight takes e4. Who is better here and why? Still white, I think. I think still white. White is better because white has what's called a queenside majority. 3 pawns versus 1, which is good in most endgames. And black, a3 is a great move. Black gets to this position and is just a clean pawn down. How does white win this? To win an endgame like this, you need to trade a pair of rooks. A trade like this would greatly benefit white. The rook would immediately get in, and black doesn't have like a second rook. So if black plays rook b8, you go b4. Black plays rook c8, you go c5. Queenside majority, completely winning. But black doesn't want a rook trade. Okay? So now you have to defend yourself against rook b8. Is it better to defend your pawn laterally or by standing behind it? Laterally. Laterally. Why? Because this doesn't defend the pawn at all. In fact, it just gave a target, rook a3. Number one. And number two, you can never do this to a rook. Ever. Like, and even better move than that would be rook d1. Because after take, and take, at least this rook has some target it can go for. You understand? By putting the rook on b1, you completely, like, this is just an endgame misunderstanding, right? This is the level that we're at 1700. Move 27 is when you have to understand what you're doing in the endgame. Now, I love what white does here. I love getting the knight in the game, and now white is winning. White played knight d4, knight c6, hitting the rook. The rook has to stay pinning this. This is winning for white. Knight e7. Because the rook can't do both. Knight e7. If king f7, knight comes back. Threatens this. Instead of that, white blunders. Doesn't see knight takes pawn. Because forgetting about this. This is like endgame tactics. And now I really don't like this move. If I asked you right now, what is white's biggest asset in this position? What is the one thing that white has that black does not? You say a knight. Not really. But yes, by the way, because this is still the best move. C-pawn. The best move for white here is probably c5. Because if pawn takes pawn, c6. Who's stopping the pawn? Rook b8, c7. Rook c8, ba. Oops. You should have put the rook in that position, right? So this whole idea, right, of just marching the pawn up the board, it's there. And in the endgame, you've got to flip a switch. It's not just about taking pawns and tactics. What is the major asset that I have? Instead, white takes, and now here comes the bishop. And that bishop is about to cause a whole hell of a lot of problems. Because after knight e6, rook a2, knight d4, you blunder a fork. Rook takes. See, white thought take. But what white didn't realize is rook b2. You have too many things on dark squares for a dark squared bishop to exploit. And when it's all said and done, you lost the piece. Bishop takes d4. And good job by white not trading the rooks. That would have been just basically like resigning, but it doesn't matter. Excellent conversion by black. And that's it. Game is over. So why did white lose this game? What happened? White misplayed the endgame. White played pretty well in the endgame. But in endgames, you have to play better than 5 moves, 7 moves. You have to play 15 moves well. You have to understand, what am I trying to avoid? Dark squared bishop, dark squared problems, right? That's where all the problems came from. And letting the bishop into the game was a big mistake. It actually would have even been better maybe to go e6. Because you never know. It's 2 squares away from queening. f5, of course, would still happen. But then you would go here. And then it's game on. This pawn is 2 squares from queening, my friends. Like, that pawn is a major problem. Black would go king f8 and maybe hang mate in 1. Or maybe black would play bishop f8, which is a huge mistake because the bishop is now very passive. So the trade deep into the endgame to activate the bishop was a major mistake. And besides that, putting the rook a little passively in the endgame, and besides that, it was a good game. I mean, I had some complaints about the opening, but openings are tough. Understanding when to start an attack and when, again, like a time thing, knight g5, h6, like this, don't waste time, If anything, you could even sacrifice and calculate whether this works or not. Like e6. Black can defend themselves, but this does look very promising. So don't waste time in the opening. But you see the difference? The difference is that now when this 1700 get into another endgame, they got to think about, where are my passed pawns? What are the tactics that exist in the position of knights and bishops? Let me not put my rook passively ever again. The 800 has to worry about not losing 10 points of material. The 1200 has to worry about converting the right way, not trading certain pieces at certain moments, and protecting counterplay against their king while also not panicking about the clock. So many takeaways. Literally, I think that was like 10 to 12 things that could have been learned in one video. And you just do this again and again and again. Let me know if this was helpful. And I'll see you in all future content. You know where to find me if you like this. If you like my videos, check out the courses. Link is in the description. Or the book. Link is in the description. And that's all for me. Get out of here.